Hey guys, today I want to take a look at the Cam ECS blaster that I picked up a while ago and played with a little bit and just haven't had a chance to really talk about it. And although it does seem to be cosmetically unmodified, there are quite a few little tweaks and things you can do to these to make them a little better. They are just amazingly comfortable. I mean, if you've ever held one, it's well balanced. The stock could be a tiny bit longer, but still not bad. The grip, it's a much fuller grip compared to other Strife Rapid Strike and stuff like that. The grip isn't cut off quite as far. You have a full handful grip right there. Nice integrated foregrip up there. Overall just good looks naturally. But I wanted to take a minute to show off some little tweaks that I did that really made me like this thing even more. To start with is the mag release that I had made by Greenhouse Gear, and it still needs to be modified a little bit more. He sent me a few samples, and there's just a little more tweaking to make it really a drop-in piece, but that's a separate story. So let's start by opening it up. And though the blaster was ridiculously overpriced, it is engineered fairly well. One thing is the shell is made of separate pieces. It is nice. The whole camera module, so to speak, is all right up top and is a single unit, independent from the rest of the shell. So if you just want to access the main internals, you don't have to go opening up that thing. Also, the shell itself, much like the Demolisher, I'm not going to turn this upside down because the screws will fall out, but the white is a separate piece from the blue, so if you did want to break this thing down to paint it, it's a lot easier than having to mask off all these little pieces. One of the first things to note, the jam door in stock form only opens about that far, which I thought was really weird, that you'd have a hole that big and your window only opens halfway. But by, well, I'm gonna go ahead and dump the screws out so I can explain what's going on. Okay, once you get the shells split apart, what you're left is this little window here. You don't have to modify the actual external panel here at all, but what I ended up doing, so like I said, it only opened up that far because this window piece here, when you slid it forward, it had this whole piece was squared off. Shh. It was a full square here, so when you slid it forward, it would crash into this body line here. So I trimmed off the corner to make it work here, but the actual opening here was actually kind of came at an angle, a weird angle this way, and cut off this whole corner, so that this piece here, this kind of retainer thing that kind of locks it into place, would crash into that little wall, so it would only open up that far. So what I ended up doing was just trimming off this corner here and holding it up to the external piece. Come on now. Nope. So that it would open all the way like that. Once I had that under control, then I came back through on this side to see what could be done about this piece here, because it would get about to that point before it would start running into stuff. So I just opened up the material to where it opened up all the way. Notice this little notch here is opened a little further to make room for this little tab, so it opens up all the way that way, which also corresponds with this line here, which of course lines up with that body line there and allows it to open up to the point where this little tab that you hang onto it with opens up. Why that wasn't just done in the first place in the original design, I do not know. There seems to be no easily explainable reason why it was set up that way, but with this opened up all the way, it allows you super easy access into the flywheels and everything. And it's not so much a must-do mod, but it is really convenient because it just really bothered me that you couldn't just open the jam door all the way. So that is a minor part. You will notice this is a 43mm containment cage that actually does fit. This is a Strife Rapid Strike application, but it does drop in exactly the same. Everything else seems to be fine. It feeds fine. There is, the cam really isn't a popular or common blaster, but it is nice to know that there is at least one component that you can drop in from pretty much any other aftermarket source. I can't say that everybody's Strife Rapid Strike cages fit, but I do know that Containment Crew's own cages do fit perfectly. Also I have blaster parts flywheels in here on Michel 2.0 motors. The whole system's running on 2S. It gets like 100, 110. It's nothing crazy, but it's nice to have it all inside the battery tray, inside, no external motor cover, even though I believe you can fit fangs, I think, in a cam without cutting into the shell. I might do that someday, but right now it's just kind of a nice planker, something for using in the backyard and stuff like that. But the real important parts to me that makes the cam special, let's get this is the battery tray that houses the batteries for the computer part of things, for the camera and whatnot. Pass that guy out of the way. The circuits are separate, so you can rewire for LiPo without affecting the computer itself, or the camera and stuff like that. All the camera stuff's intact, just because it's kind of a fun gimmick and I didn't really have any other plans. I might go do some other fancy stuff with this and put some kind of control screen for Arduino stuff or an ammo counter or something like that in the future, but right now, like I said, it's unmolested up here. But the really, really cool part about the cam is that it has a different geometry on the trigger than the Strife and most other semi-automatic flywheels, to where you literally don't have to have okay, that's hooked up. So I'm just going to flip this over real quick and disconnect the LiPo. This is probably a slightly undersized battery, but it's the smallest battery I have at the time. I do need to get one that's a little higher discharge. But it does fit under the stock motor cover, battery cover, battery door, and works with the thumb screw available. I think I got this one from Foam Blast. Okay. It does have a separate unit for the Magwell mouth, so to speak, much like the Rapid Strike and stuff like that, Raven, I believe. But the trigger geometry is a little bit different, that you don't have to pull the trigger as far as you do on a Strife. I did the measurements once and I can't remember where it was, but there's not nearly as much draw on the pull to get the same push distance, which makes it super cool, because it does have just a buttery smooth trigger after you do a few things to it. It initially, I believe it's under this cover here. Yes. I think I still have a few pictures, up close pictures from when I did this originally, but just in case, I'll hold it up nice and close for you guys. Right here, the bottom of the this is part of the lock and electrical lock and stuff like that and switch in the circuit, but the bottom of this little lever here rounds under, but there's a little it rides on this slide. This little cover piece has a little piece, this little lip on the bottom that actually acts as kind of the guide that keeps the trigger aligned. So when this is there and you pull the trigger back, because the bottom was rounded off, it would get to the end of this little cover piece and drop off. So the trigger itself, when you pull on it, would come and then kind of click and drop off. Then it would kind of pop back up when you let go of the trigger. So what I did was just build up the corner of it with just super glue and then shaped and sanded it, just to give it a little bit of an extension, so that makes the trigger pull itself smoother. Also, there's a weird drop here where it's, I don't know, the hole is big enough for the full thickness of the pusher here, but yet the pusher tapers up to a bit of a point up here, and so it would like flop up and down and around, and there again, when you pull the trigger, you'd want to kind of pop up and down, and it was just kind of rattly and clunky, and I really didn't like it. But now, with just these few simple corrections, it's just an amazingly smooth, quick, comfortable, very fluid feeling trigger, and it's actually probably the best feeling trigger of any of my semi-automatic flywheels, and I just really like it. It makes it nice and easy to use. You don't feel like you're pulling nearly as far, you know, because sometimes like on a Strife it feels like you're just, especially if you're firing fast, then you know you really have, you know, a lot of travel on the trigger. But this here is just very, you know, I think it's almost like 3/4 of the distance of the Strife. And of course, since when you're firing, you are using the trigger, that's kind of the main thing. It has become a very, it's kind of an important deal. A bad trigger pull can really, you know, break a blaster, so to speak. Not physically break it, but, you know, break its, make it or break it. So, also here, let's put this thing right there for a minute. This is the mag release. I did have to modify it, move it over, cut it and glue it a little bit. That's because the geometry of the whole grip and everything is just so weird here. That the grip is a lot more vertical, the grip is closer to the mag well, and so it's a little more compact, and so the whole geometry and everything of the mag release is different as well, which is kind of too bad because it does make it kind of an odd duck, kind of a weirdo to try to find parts for. But it is working, and it is a very beautifully designed mag release. And that's, I believe that's for the most part, that's all I really did to it. But those little changes, just with the trigger itself, I did replace the switch, the micro switch for the rev switch, but I was able to make it work with the existing lock in place, which is kind of nice because this trigger hole is kind of cramped, and so just in the course of moving the blaster around, you do kind of pull on the trigger once in a while. So I left this lock in place, just so you're not accidentally pushing rounds halfway in and binding up flywheels and stuff like that. So let's stick this thing back together. And there it is. If you've never held a cam ECS and you're happy with your life, then go ahead and you know, don't bother if you see one. Because I was totally fine. I thought, okay, the cam is overrated, it's overpriced, it's just a big Strife, no big deal. Until I was out visiting Wacom over spring break last year, and he had one there that I believe he got from Clowney, and I said, hey, can I see that? And I picked it up and went, oh, my life is not complete yet. And it was just such a wonderful blaster to hold, wonderful to look at. Still has the same upgrade potential as your basic flywheeler and stuff. It's just a fantastic shell, and it has just a very smooth mag well. It's just very crisp. It doesn't, mags don't flop around. It's not overly snug like some Strifes are. It's just a very satisfying, smooth click in. And like I said, combine that with the very nice, smooth trigger pull, and it's just a very nice, very attractive, and very uncommon blaster. So those are just a few little tricks that I did to make mine much better. I've seen some other pretty cool ones out there, but if you happen to be lucky enough to thrift a cam or find one used for a reasonable amount of money, I would definitely pick it up because it's just that good. You know, ask the man who owns one. It's just a very kind of quirky, but a very overall practical, more or less. Has utility if you want to add a better camera or whatever on top. Just a good blaster, very underappreciated, I believe, although still way overpriced. So, if you have any further questions, go ahead and leave them below, and I'll try to answer them to my best of my ability, and we'll definitely be seeing you next time.